In this video, I want to talk to you about what is your perspective on parenting. This is an important question for us to ask ourselves because how we view our perspective on who we are as parents, what our responsibilities are, what our responsibilities are not, how much do we do for our kids, is our identity maybe wrapped up in the success of our kids? All of those things kind of weigh into the kind of parent we are and the way we view our role as parents. And so today I just want to kind of challenge us to think about what is our perspective and really what is the right perspective to have. Now, Paul Tripp, in one of his books, he talks about this idea of ownership parenting. And here's how he would define that. Ownership parenting is thinking that you are in control. Now, on the surface of it, I think for most of us as parents, we'd say, yeah, I think I'm in control. I mean, we bring our kids into the world, we feed them, we bathe them, we provide them a home. We bring them to school, we give them opportunities, we take them on vacation. I mean, we're creating their life, right? And so in a sense, you could say, well, yeah, ownership parenting makes sense to me. I'm certainly in control of what my kids are doing or not doing in many ways. But is that the right way to look at it? Is the right way to view our parenting is that we are in control? Now, if we think that we're in control, what are some of those pitfalls of that kind of perspective on parenting? Well, I know for me, when I fall into that kind of thinking, I make my focus on everything about what I can control, and my perspective becomes what I project on my kids. So fears and insecurities that I have, I project those on my kids. If they're getting an unfair treatment from a teacher or a coach, I'm feeling the responsibility to take control of that and to say, that's not fair. You need to treat my kid right. If I think that I'm in control as a parent and it's my job to create the destiny that my kid's going to live out, then I'm going to be investing in, you better believe it, I'm going to pay for whatever coaching that they need, whatever experiences they need, whatever extra tutoring they might need, so they can have a leg up, so they can have the best life possible. And so do you see some of those pitfalls in that kind of thinking is it's very much focused on ourselves. And as parents thinking, we're in control, we decide the destiny of our kids, and if we don't do it right, then our kids might fail, and that's no good. And so there's not really even any consideration about God's perspective. So that's the pitfall of ownership parenting. And even though a lot of us probably fall into that category and we don't even realize it, we need to look at ourselves and say, you know what? Control is a scary word to think about. And for me in my parenting, there have been many times where I take that burden on myself and I think I've got to do everything. I've got to figure it out. If my kids are going to get a leg up against so-and-so, then I got to figure it out. I've got to do more. I've got to create more opportunities. It's exhausting and it's hard. And guess what? That's not God's best for us. Let's look at what God's perspective is on parenting. Our first clue comes from the book of Psalms. Here's what it says. Children are a gift from the Lord. They are a reward from Him. See, if we're going to have the right perspective on parenting, we got to do less ownership parenting where we think we're in control and give our kids over to God who ultimately belong to God anyways, like it says there in the book of Psalms. Children are a gift. They're a reward from God to us. So as parents then, we need to see ourselves more of managers or implementers of God's plan in our kids' lives. We're not in control. God is in control. The Bible also talks about this idea that each and every one of us are created uniquely and specifically with a special plan in mind, that God has orchestrated our lives in advance. So for us as parents to think that we somehow now come in and take control of our kids' lives and we decide their destiny is silly. God's saying, listen, I already have a plan. If you would just listen to me, if you would slow down, if you would put me first, I will show you the plan I have for your kids, and I'll show you how to bring them down that right path, because there certainly is a major role parents are playing in implementing God's plan. But the difference is we're not in control. We're releasing control to God, and we're implementing the plan that He has. So maybe one of the questions that you're asking yourself is, well, how do I know what God's plan is? Well, here's some practical things you can do. It starts with what it says in the book of Deuteronomy. Let's read that together. You must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I'm giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you are at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. See, parents, what we really need to do is, instead of making our perspective on parenting that we have to take control, is to release it to God. And the best way to do that is to bring God into your home and to be reminded every day that God is bigger than any of our situations and circumstances. God is bigger and has better plans for us and our kids than we can even dream up for ourselves. So what we need to do is commit ourselves to putting God in our homes and making Him the focus. Because when we do that, then we can start to see the path that He wants us to go down. So here's some practical things to make that happen. The first thing is pray specifically for your kids. Instead of thinking about all the pressure of making my kids successful falls on me, I'm just trying to release my kids to God. And I pray for them every day. God, lead them in the path that you want. Show them the plans that you have for their lives. Open up the doors that they need to walk through. Show us what those things are. One of the prayers that I've been praying lately, and something that I just feel like God's spoken in my heart, is that God loves my kids more than I do. So He knows better what they need than me. And so instead of praying for all the things that I think my kids need, I'm just releasing them to God and just praying and just saying, God, give my kids the opportunities that they need to succeed and to move forward with the plan that God has for their lives. Do you see the difference there? It's not then about me having to create these opportunities or to be in charge of their destiny, but releasing them to God. The next practical thing is just do family devotionals together as a family every week. Train and teach your kids to think about God's way before their own way, right? For so many of our kids, they're going off to school, they're in competitive situations. They've got kids saying, what really matters is the clothes you wear and, the sports team you're on and how good you are. Are you a starter or do you sit on the bench? Whatever it is. And they're feeling pressure all the time to live up to some standard. And what you can do in family devotionals is to remind all of you, God's way is best. Let's trust God's way. Let's trust His plan for our lives. Let's remember what the real win is in life, that it isn't about these frivolous things that the world tells us to get caught up in. Have meaningful conversations about future planning and about what really matters and how to be on a sports team or when you're in a musical at school or how to conduct yourself in the classroom, and talk about who you are, each of us, as a representative of God in the world that we're in, and trust that God has a plan for our lives. And let's let God define that instead of letting ourselves or the world define it. One last practical tip I have, talk to an older couple that's further along in the journey of parenting. That's been really helpful to me. There's been many times where I get worked up about a situation and I'll talk to a friend that has kids that are much older than mine and they'll say, you know what, don't lose focus on this. This is not going to be a big deal. 5 years from now, you're not even going to remember this situation. Keep the real win in mind and don't get off track here and don't let so-and-so make you feel bad about this or don't put pressure on your kids that way. I mean, I've had many people say that to me. And so I think it's good for us to seek wise counsel and people that can see a little bit more objectively than the situation we're in. So parents, use those questions below. Have a conversation as parents or in a small group setting or in a mentoring relationship and really think about what is your perspective on parenting. And let's guard against that idea of ownership parenting where we think we are in control and that we have to make all these decisions for our kids. And let's just release them to God and to His plan. His way's better anyways.